So the year was 1982, and as a good Catholic girl, I was immersed in the ritual of confession. Now imagine yourself as a small child stepping into a cold, dark wooden box with a scary old man adorned in a white gown. Quite frankly, this concept terrified me. So I asked my teacher, "What's the point?" It's fair to say that her response took my fear to a whole new level. If you need to ask questions like that, then clearly you are not ready. I would be held back. And when I was ready, which of course meant asking no further questions, I would then be allowed to confess alone. Now I ask you, how would you feel if this were you? Because I can tell you, as a small child, I was completely devastated. Fear has long been used by authority figures to control our thinking and our behaviour. We've been led to believe that fear should be used as an alarm bell to run away rather than lean in to opportunity. But do you think retreating from fear helped the likes of Nelson Mandela, Elon Musk, Ellen DeGeneres, or the amazing Rosa Parks realise their big dreams for change? The answer is no. What if I told you fear was the greatest lever you had to create the life that you wanted? I'm not that different from the average person. I spent 16 years working my butt off in pursuit of the dream, until one day there was an internal voice that was shouting at me, "This is not your definition of success, it's somebody else's." Serious change was required, change that would place me firmly into the great unknown. But I made a choice. I stepped into the fear, and within a 7-month period, I turned my life completely upside down in pursuit of happiness. What does that look like? Well, I left a 16-year career as an executive with a global giant at the absolute top of my game. I relocated my family from Perth back to Melbourne, left an 18-year relationship, and started my own purpose-driven company, BKindred, with the sole intent of positively impacting the lives of others. This is what life looks like now. Present, humanly connected, and leaving the world just a little better than what it was when I arrived. Now, I'm not asking you to do what I did in order to test your appetite for fear. I'm challenging you. What one change would you make tomorrow that you know would make your life happier if fear did not exist? And what is it, when you've got that in your head, what is it that's held you back? Fear of failure? The judgment of others? Or everyone's favourite, financial instability? How would your life be different if you no longer allowed fear to act as a barrier between what you want and taking action? Let's unpack a very topical fear at the moment that's on the minds of many. So topical, in fact, it was the #1 point of conversation amongst global CEOs at Singularity University at the NASA Research Centre, which I attended 2 weeks ago. The loss of jobs associated with the exponential growth in technology. 57% of you may not have a job in the next 10 years. What would that look like? Well, it would look like more than half the people in this room having to go out and unpack purpose if they haven't done that already, and reskilling in something fundamentally different from what you do today. How does that make you feel? A little fearful, perhaps? Fear is firmly embedded in our future, especially if we realise a rate of unemployment more than double that of the Great Depression. And what of the next generation? 65% of the jobs that exist today will not exist when my 8-year-old gets into the workforce. What is it that Gen Z fear at the moment? Well, I can share with you what they've told me. They fear an education system that is not skilling them to ask questions, not teaching them how to embrace and create change, how to have difficult human conversations. They fear a lack of opportunity in a world where robots do the bulk of the work. And perhaps most disturbingly, some fear the eradication of humankind at the hands of artificial intelligence we've created. Which is why nihilism is currently trending with this generation, which is a belief that life has no meaning. Change is the only certainty in the future. And it is only going to get faster and even more disorientating. Now, am I trying to instill fear? Hell yes. And why would I do that? Because so many of us seem to be suffering from what I kindly term ostrich syndrome. Hoping that if we bury our heads in the sand, the future will work itself out. But burying our heads in the sand is a surefire way to ensure that we're all stuffed. So how is it that we prepare for this infinite unknown? I like to look to the wise words of Dr. Seuss. Who doesn't love Dr. Seuss? Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's just not. We know the future is uncertain, but it is equally the greatest opportunity we have ever had. The future is not here yet. It is up to us to create it. We need to step into the great unknown, learn to dance with the fear, in order to realise that absolutely anything is now possible. Who does this resonate with? Obviously a few. Do you know that we suffer more in our own imagination than we do in real life? And yet fear is not fact. Did you know that anxiety and excitement are extremely similar emotions? According to data science, the only difference between the two is that anxiety focuses on the outcome being negative. So what if we sought to reduce the anxiety associated with fear? What if we started talking about the things that scared us most more openly? Well, I've done exactly that with thousands just like you. And here's what I found. When we create a safe space for fear, we realise that the fears we have, many of us share. We normalise fear, and rather than judge one another, we seek to understand, empathise, and quite quickly, we move into problem solving, which allows us to come out the other side of that fear just a little better. But most beautifully, we unlock the door to innovation, possibility, and greater happiness. I have learnt that the more we step into the discomfort of fear, the more likely the outcome will be game-changing. To give you an example, not so long ago, I was asked to speak, as I often am, at a conference for professional women. The topic was tactics for happy change. So I was challenged. I had, like today, the graveyard shift, and they were serving wine at lunchtime. So how was I going to keep them awake? But equally, how was I going to get those women to walk out of that room looking at fear through a different lens? This is how. I stood on that stage. I dropped my bohemian wraparound dress, and with a body built for comfort, not for modelling, I said, Love me or hate me, you will not forget me. And if there is only one thing that you take away from today, it's that happy change is found when we learn to get comfortable with discomfort. And I can honestly tell you, it doesn't get any more uncomfortable than this. There may have been a swear word in there. Stepping into fear and vulnerability in that way changed my life in a way that was unimaginable. The moment went viral on LinkedIn with over 50,000 views. Who even knew that was a thing? LinkedIn. It created a global movement called Naked for Change, where I was getting emails from people all around the world telling me how this had encouraged them to step into some of their greatest fears. But most amazingly, when I stood on that stage, for the very first time in 41 years, I realised that I no longer sought the validation of others. The only validation I needed in my life was my own. And I cannot tell you how empowering that is. So to close this out, I want to share with you a brief story. There was a palliative care nurse called Bronnie Ware. She spent 15 years with the dying, asking them on their deathbeds what their regrets were. This is the number one regret of the dying. I wished I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Do you think these people stepped into fear on a daily basis? Could this be you? Do you want this to be you? Because if the answer is no, I challenge you to walk out the door today. Step into the great unknown and know that now is your time to make fear your future. Thank you very much.